Midway is an amazing story. And it has never been told right.
I'll meet you at the Japanese fleet.
There's some pivotal points in World War II that shaped what the outcome was for America. One of them is the Battle of Midway.
I'm glad at least some of the boys still want to fight.
Everybody was very conscientious about trying to make it real, and I think they got it right.
If we don't knock out that airfield, they'll go after Enterprise.
We're talking about a conflict that lots of good men lost their lives on both sides. So it's important that we are as historically accurate as we can be. So how wonderful for us that being historically accurate is still unbelievable and epic and exciting.
We are playing make-believe, right? But we're just trying to play make-believe as authentically as we can.
I was sitting down in the Roland Emmerich and we were having lunch, and I said, "What's the one that got away? What's the story you always wanted to tell?" And he said, "It's the Battle of Midway." And my jaw hit the floor because I've been obsessed with military history since I was a child, and specifically the Pacific Theater.
We started talking, and he explained to me that he comes from a Navy background, Navy brats, they call them.
Well, my grandfather was Navy, and so, you know, some kids grew up collecting baseball cards. I grew up fascinated by World War II and what had happened. In the 7th grade, I made a diorama of the Battle of Midway. I'd always been fascinated by it.
And he felt, you know, that like me, that this is a movie has to be made.
What surprised me with Wes's script was that when I opened it on page 1, it said everything in this story is true, even if it reads like Hollywood bullshit.
Everything that happens on screen in terms of a historical event is factual and is in chronological order. Virtually every character in the film is based on a real person.
We asked ourselves, how do you approach a movie like that? And then the more we talked about it, the more we said, like, we don't have to invent anything.
Everybody knows that life's real stories are so much more out there than any Hollywood script could ever be.
To me, this is the greatest military comeback story in history. What these naval pilots did was so extraordinary and so courageous. If you tell it as authentically as possible and try to capture the human emotion of that, it'll pay respect to their sacrifice. Our first day, first shot, was on a point on the north coast of Oahu where they'd hand-built a bunker and put in a tower and gun emplacements, and you have period vehicles and hundreds of extras. You realize suddenly at that moment the scope and the dedication is going to go in to get it exactly right.
We got to film on the naval base in Pearl Harbor.
When you're looking at a building and there are bullet holes in the side of it from the attack in 1941, you go, okay, we're going to tell this story as truthful as we can.
You could really feel it, you know, you could really feel the weight of what it must have been like.
One of our most important characters in the film is the USS Enterprise, the Big E.
The first idea was to do it on a real aircraft carrier. We realized that was not possible.
So Roland decided that we're going to make this thing on stage.
They basically built it almost to scale. It fills the stage H, which is an enormous stage.
It's actually, I think, the biggest stage, square foot wide, in North America. And we built the flight deck as big as we could.
The stage is so big that there's only 15 feet on each side of the flight deck before you hit the walls. I mean, it's really unbelievable.
When I got to set, I was gobsmacked. There is the length of an actual carrier of the USS Enterprise.
I feel like I've just walked onto the Enterprise and it's my first day. I mean, they've got the machine guns on the side and they've got the bridge and they've got the wires for the planes.
We built the bowels of the ship, the pilot house flag bridge. We've built the pilot ready room, the officers' quarters, the crew quarters, the mess hall.
There was maps on the walls, and there was images of the planes that we were looking for, and the ready room, which is where McCluskey would brief them. That room was my favorite. I felt very at home as McCluskey in those scenes.
The little things on the desk, the compass and the knickknacks, things that he had saved, tells a story, huh?
structurally had to be sound enough for not only 300 to 400 people on deck, but 2 giant aircraft.
We have built, especially for this film, a Douglas dive bomber and a torpedo bomber, which I've been told is the only replica in existence.
And each is 52 feet wide at the wingspan. Each is about 30,000 pounds.
At the very beginning, we wanted to actually use real planes. At the end, we only used a real B-25 bomber, because that was like just too big to build. But we built our own planes. There was not one existing TVD in the world. I worked with Kirk Petruccelli. So he went to the Smithsonian and got the original plans from these 2 planes. And then we built them, to the screw.
The wings had to be mounted, the wings had to fold, the engine had to turn on, the exhaust had to work. It's extraordinarily detailed.
The level of detail that they've done with the plane itself, it all seems like it could work.
To be honorable to the guys who went up and down and, and died serving their country, we got the details right.
The USS Enterprise hasn't existed since she was scrapped in the 50s, and yet we're shooting towards wide open ocean, and when you see the movie, you'll absolutely believe that it's there.
There's a rumor that you told the Prime Minister that Japan can't win a war with the United States.
I said we couldn't win a long war.
We have several Japanese actors telling the story from the Japanese point of view.
Japan is at the crossroads. We are emboldened by our invasion of China and eager to become a world power.
I know Roland and the creators have worked tirelessly to show a truthful telling of both sides.
We get 80% of our oil from your country. If that supply is threatened, it will force us into drastic measures.
I think when you today make a war movie and you show one side really as the bad guys and the other side as the good guys, I think that then you don't do war justice. Because I think you have to understand what was the Japanese side.
Don't push us into a corner. You must give those of us who are more reasonable a chance to carry the day.
It enlightens people, it shows they're also human, they're also brave, so you can empathize with both sides.
部屋から出てきてください。俺たちは陛下のお命を危険にさらした。敵機はほんのわずかでした。
It was always meant to be a story that doesn't favor America in the light of history.
では、仕事に取り掛かろう。
So let's do this.
When people think of Roland Emmerich, the first thing they think of is his amazing ability to handle scope.
No one does this better than Roland. There's not too many directors who know how to do it. David Lean used to do this kind of scale. And he also brings that human story that raises the stakes.
Roland is incredible at finding a way to have these moments that feel larger than life, but then suddenly make it feel very personal. That level of attention to detail and care sets him apart.
The battle sequences and the battleships and the airborne battles look incredible. But also, there's a real heart to the story. We're not just watching the airplanes, but we're inside the planes with the pilots, seeing the reactions on their faces, seeing their anguish and their desperation and their bravery.
Are you okay, sir? Ready our position.
He does have big, epic films, but he knows that it all rolls on people caring about these characters and their relationships, and so that's what you get here.
I trust Leighton and his team. Make your plans accordingly.
Of course, we know that this is going to be a story of epic scale with someone like Roland, but the fact that this story is rooted in just a man whose strength and lifeline is his family is just beautiful and intimate.
It's different now. I have to lead these men. What do I say to them?
They'll follow you anywhere, Dick Best.
Audiences go to movies to feel things, not necessarily to see things. They want to feel things. And this delivers in a very visceral way and also in a very human, emotional way.
You're going ashore to the hospital.
Now what are my men gonna think when their admiral up and decides he needs a vacation?
It's a direct order, Bill.
To make a movie like Midway, you have to kind of make it a big movie. But on the other hand, when you want to balance out story against visual effects, what you really have to do is like you have to first look at your characters, you have to look at your actors, and then like kind of only work with them. Don't ever think about anything else than that. And then when you're in the editing room and you can breathe freely, then you like start like kind of looking at the visual effects.
You ready?
We're set and action.
The thing with Roland is the movie is already in his head. It's our job to get it out of there and make it all happen with him, obviously.
I had a great time working with Roland because he really knows exactly what he needs. We're basically sitting down with Roland and discussing what type of movement that we need to create with the camera and the airplane to give him the shots he wants.
The handover point between what you shoot in real life and what actually then is in a computer is so important, because you need to be able to run on the wing and jump in your cockpit, and then once they're flying, you're in computer land.
What do you want to bet she's trying to catch up with the carriers?
In those situations, you have to really use your imagination. And I think more and more actors who do movies are required to create the world in which they live in. The ship, the wings, the other planes in your formation, explosions. There's so much you have to think about.
And left, and right, and left, and right, and left, and right. Okay, and cut.
So in a way, it's great. I mean, I've always had a vivid imagination. Being an only child, I had a lot of imaginary friends when I was young, so that's probably benefiting me in a lot as I've become an actor.
My hopes are with the storytelling that under Roland's supervision and his guidance and his dream, an incredibly technological process could tell a story that's seamless.
There are wars that need to be fought. This was one of them. If there was ever a good war, the guys in our movie are the ones fighting it.
We all felt like we were making something special. It's really gonna hopefully shed a nice light on the history of what happened back then.
These guys were in the midst of battle. You know, they were all young men who were fighting for their lives. I feel blessed and I feel honored to be a part of this story and also to be playing this man. I want to do this guy justice. I want to honor his legacy.
This film, I think, in a way, is dedicated to that generation. My parents' generation, they sacrificed so much for all of us, even the people at home, you know. And everybody pitched in for something bigger than themselves. And I think it's a lesson for all of us as a generation. Because of uniting, in spite of our differences, coming together.
Building a monument to these guys is probably the main driving force, you know, of all of us, of Wes, of me, of like Harold, the producer, everybody, all the actors, just to kind of put a monument to these people.